Today we're back on the Stories About Kevin subreddit and it's going to be so fun. Reading about people being extraordinarily stupid. And yeah, as it is every single time on here, I'm sure we're going to have a whole bunch of fun today. And thank you for being here, guys. I really appreciate it. Having a beautiful, relaxing day today and I hope you are too. Enjoy, guys. Silicone implants on the beach? Well, this friend of mine is not normally a Kavina. On the contrary, she's a very smart woman with a university degree in the health field. Yeah, but it doesn't mean you can't be a Kevin. But I guess we all have our Kevin moments sometimes. Back in 1995, we were 1 year away from graduation and exhausted. So 3 of us decided to take 2 weeks in summer to go relax on a beach in Brazil. We rented a small apartment and we're enjoying our very deserved holidays. One day, taking a stroll on the beach, we start seeing plenty of jelly discs all washed up on the shore. One time, Kavina said, "I wonder what those are." And I, in a sublime moment of inspiration, answered, "Silicone breast implants." One time, Kavina looked at me like a deer in the headlights and said, "No way." "Yeah," I affirmed, and proceeded that the health system in Brazil is very dodgy. Wait, before Brazilians roast me and want to kill me, I come from a neighbor Latin American country where the health system is utter crap, but we are sadly convinced that we're better than the rest of the world and play better football. Now you know where I'm originally from, and technology very weak, so women go to have very cheap plastic surgeries that are so botched that they end up losing the implants while swimming in the sea, but they don't care, they just go and have it done again. This is amazing. One time Kavina gave me a blink sort of look and said, "Geez," and then carried on walking. The third friend looked at me with a stern face and I whispered, "Leave it." At the airport at the end of the holidays, I felt bad and I confessed to one time Kavina that I was totally BSing her and they were actually jellyfish. One time Kavina didn't speak to me for a long time. So yeah, maybe they're not a Kavina, but they're just super unbelievably gullible. Or maybe they just really trusted you and now you've destroyed their trust. No, I'm sure they're completely fine. I think that's one of the funniest ones we've read. Kavina doesn't know what caffeine is. I was at work yesterday. I'm a stocker and I was working in the coffee section of the store. Then this lady came to me with a Nestle coffee that said decaf in the package. She proceeded to ask me what decaf meant. So I told her that decaf stands for decaffeinated. She stood there for a couple of seconds and said, "So it has more coffee?" And I said, "No, it means the coffee is decaffeinated." And she said once again, "So it has more coffee, right?" At this point, I was shocked. How can someone that drinks coffee not know what caffeine is? So I said, "You know what caffeine is, right? It's an active ingredient that coffee has." "Well, this coffee doesn't have it in it." She was processing what I said and then took a regular coffee and replied with, "Oh, so decaf is stronger than this?" At first, I honestly thought she was messing with me, but I could see on her face that she was literally confused as hell. So I just said, "No, decaf is lighter than regular." She just said, "Oh, okay," and then grabbed the decaf. Maybe she'll notice what I was talking about when she drinks her morning cup and doesn't feel awake at all. Wow, that's so funny. Are you messing with me right now, or are you being serious? So it has more coffee in it? No. Are you listening to what I'm saying? The top comment says, "I once had a customer ask me, what's the difference between a hot and a cold pot pie? I responded, one is hot and one is cold." She nodded and we both walked away. Like what, out of pure embarrassment? Like, oh, I realize how stupid that was. Okay, let's never speak of this again. Goodbye. Kevin may be from a planet with multiple moons. Backstory, I'm in the Coast Guard and I was stationed with this Kevin many years ago. One of his jobs at the time was to stand as a lookout while on patrol. Basically, he went up to a deck above the bridge and called down any boats, aircraft or hazards to navigation that radar or us driving the boat may have missed. Kevin was known top to bottom for being the most Kevin-y Kevin. Anywhere from showing up on a Wednesday and walking around the boat in civilian clothes asking everyone why they were at work on a Saturday, to going down to the electric room and trying to rewire our electric panels to be more efficient because he read a book about it one time. This particular night I was on the mid-watch, 12 AM to 4 AM, with Kevin in the Gulf of Alaska, myself and 3 others on the bridge driving the boat, and Kevin up top standing lookout. It started as any watch with him would, him calling down obvious shooting stars as flare sightings, and us getting yelled at by the captain for alerting him of anything Kevin says, despite policy dictating we have to do so. Hours into the night, we notice there's a full blood orange moon in the the sky. We discuss it for several minutes and then we start to move on to other conversation topics. No sooner do we move on when we receive a report from Kevin that went something like this. Kevin, I have a surface contact bearing approximately so-and-so miles away. Very normal contact report, but the officer in charge decides to go back and check out the newly reported contact. He notices that there are only 2 contacts in that area and they have both already been called out by Kevin. Maybe an honest mistake. I call back up to him and have him clarify, but no, he insists that there's a 3rd contact. I then proceed to ask him jokingly if he called out the moon as a surface contact. It must be noted that the moon is also fairly high up in the sky. This man replies with, oh yeah, maybe. My bad, we just don't have any moons like that where I'm from. So I figured that it was a weird boat. Kevin was never allowed to stand lookout again. Wait, so they think that every place has a different moon? That's so interesting. Obviously it's not true, but that's so interesting. Surely it would have been so humiliating explaining this. Like explaining that there aren't multiple different moons. The substitute Kevin told 12-year-olds to write about ATM machines. Back in 7th grade, we had a substitute teacher everyone was familiar with, as he would fill in for various teachers pretty often. An older man in his 60s. We'll call him Mr. Kevin. Every day we had journal entries to write, and the prompt will be written on the board when we came into class. Our normal teacher was nice enough to have already written the prompt on the board for the day that Mr. Kevin would be subbing in. The prompt was, what do you like most about ATMs? That was the acronym for our middle school, and we all knew it. Mr. Kevin apparently did not know it, because he said, alright now everyone, go ahead and write your journal entries. Your teacher wants you to write what you think about ATMs, so go ahead and get that done. We then tried to explain that no, that's our middle school. He kept telling us to write about ATM machines. We tried to explain that we were 12 and had never used ATM machines, so she could not possibly want us to write about ATM machines. He still told us to write about ATM machines because that's what it said on the board, so just go ahead and get it done. One might argue that he was pulling our legs, but this man was generally clueless and not one to joke around with students ever. I think half the class wrote about what they like about our school, while the other half wrote about how much they like watching their parents take money out of ATM machines. What? Okay, everybody, write about something that you have no idea about. Like, that's common sense, isn't it? And surely they wrote some pretty funny stuff. Like, yeah, I like it when we go to the ATM, I suppose, and my mum takes money out of it. Yeah, it's great. I'm not sure how ATMs work. I guess they have money in them. I don't know this because I'm 12. And yeah, that's what I like about them. Hilarious. Kavina and the Netflix payment. I share my Netflix subscription with my former roommate from college, Kavina, and 2 other girls. Everyone pays me monthly and the subscription is paid automatically via credit card. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. The email registered is mine, so I'm the only one who gets emails from Netflix like payment issues, new shows, etc. Last week, however, I get a message from Kavina asking me if everything's alright with the Netflix payment. Before answering her, I open Netflix to see if it's working, as sometimes the credit card limit is reached and the automatic payment doesn't work. Everything is fine, I can watch whatever I want, so I texted her back, yeah, it's all fine, why? Well, I just got an email from Netflix saying we need to update the payment method. I thought maybe your credit card was maxed out or something. Yeah, but how could you receive an email from Netflix if there's no account linked to it? Oh yeah, that's right, I guess it's a scam, you think? I never thought there was someone that would fall for something so easy to check out. Apparently I was wrong. She could have easily had her credit card information stolen if it was her account. Yeah, this one's a little bit more tame compared to, you know, thinking there's multiple moons on Earth. But still, yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, like this comment says, that's why these scams work. It's because of Kevin's. Dated a Kevin. As much as this pains me to admit, I dated a Kevin. You could tell his name was Kevin because he had it tattooed in a semicircle above his belly button. What? What do you mean? Like their own name tattooed in a semicircle? Okay. To put him in perspective, imagine a 44-year-old mama's boy who never let go of the apron strings, ate dinner at his parents' house every day. He did fool me at first because he lived in an actual house by himself, but it turns out it's a family house, so he doesn't even get points for moving out. One time he invited me to go to the Ripley's Aquarium. They have a really neat tank that you actually go through via a tunnel. They also offer showtimes for live feedings and various demonstrations. One of the special demonstrations that day was a live mermaid show. It's held in a large tank with an audience viewing from a large glass portal. There were children lined up enthralled as the 2 young women in mermaid costumes dove in the tank and swam up and down for their amusement. My thoughts while watching them was mainly how they must be experts at holding their breath. It was pretty neat to watch. Just then, Kevin gets my attention and asks if it was real. Perplexed, I try to think what could be real and assume that he was thinking if it was a live show or some sort of pre-recorded viewing. I replied that it was live. He asked me again, is it real? Are they real mermaids? I was floored. I realized by then he was bless his heart level, but really? Real mermaids? I did the only thing I could, which was to answer with a straight face, struggling not to let it crack that yes, they were real mermaids. Unfortunately, that's not the dumbest thing he ever did. Nowadays, I watch from the sidelines and not dating him and try not to laugh. That's incredible. Wait a second, are they real mermaids? They went to the trouble of finding real live mermaids? Wow, that's some serious dedication. Kevin and Karen expect to go to another country without a passport. My family and I were just returning from a trip to see our relatives in Brazil, and we were going back home to Chicago. We were at the bag check and we heard some commotion from the people behind us. Out come Kevin and Karen. If you've been to an airport, you can't bring liquid items above 100 mils on the plane. They're making a fuss with the security about which of their thousands of full shampoo bottles and waters they had. They passed the bag check. Now with much emptied luggage and we're doing the passport check, our family got called up for them to look at our passports like normal, and then Kevin and Karen got called up to the booth next to us. We overheard them talking to the guy and then showing them their IDs and expecting that to pass them through. The man had to explain that you need a passport to go through, and then them saying they didn't have a passport, and they start reviewing their options. I didn't really hear the rest, but they both walked out of the place with winded looking faces. Kavina tried to pet an African lion in the wild. This happened in South Africa. I'm from the United States, but I traveled for an internship to South Africa. One of my fellow interns was a Kavina, though she was only 17, so maybe there's hope that she'll grow up. We worked on a boat in the Mossel Bay, which is home to hundreds of great white sharks. At first, I thought she was just a lazy teen who didn't think she'd be made to work on an internship. She refused to do the more disgusting tasks such as chum the water and secure a tuna head, and usually took the role of photographer. Every time she opened her mouth, I rolled my eyes. She couldn't think fast, which was pretty important when there were sharks around and you're trying to attach a GoPro to their dorsal fin. But the real moment I knew she was a Kavina was the weekend. We got to go on a safari, one of the single most amazing few days of my life. We saw every African animal one might imagine on such an adventure, including the African steer, yes, a cow. They came right up to our truck and they poked their heads against those sitting on the sides. Our guide informed us we could touch them if we wanted to. The petting of the cows lasted far longer than I would have liked. Don't get me wrong, I love animals, but I do have cows at home, and I don't have elephants or lions, zebras, etc. Kavina was sitting behind me in the very back row of a 3-row extended truck, sitting high up like a stadium seat where each row is higher than the one before it, so everyone can see. I was in the first row closest to the ground in front of her with one person between us. We went off to see other animals and do other things, even passing the cows again, where she whined that she wanted to stop and touch them. She began trying to touch every animal that we saw after, which was fine and stupid. Yeah, sure, you reach for the water buck, it's only 100 meters away. You might graze its fur. And then we came upon the lions. Lions are very lazy, so it was relatively the same idea of, yeah, honey, keep dreaming. Our guide did warn us though, as long as we're in the vehicle, we are not prey, but anything outside the vehicle would be considered food. He yelled at her a few times to keep her arm in, but she just did it when he wasn't watching. She kept chanting, "Here, kitty," and going on about how soft they would be. The lioness, lazy, got up and some poor deer-like animal caught her eye, and she started to stalk it. I was so excited, thinking I was going to witness a lion hunting. The guy drove off a couple of 100 feet and placed us between the lioness and her prey. Okay, less excited now as the lioness stalking her prey is coming right for me, since I was on the edge. The guy tells us that she's using us as a cover and will come right along the side of the truck. She does, and it's amazing, coming up by me and then around the front of the cab. Then I see the two male lions get up slowly and follow. Again, I was nervous but more excited this time. They do the same using the truck as cover, but they go around the back. I follow them with my camera and I see Kavina reaching out towards the hunting lion, trying to pat it. I snap a picture as quietly as I can and I tell her to get her arm back in. The harshness of my voice and other sudden protests make her pull her arm back in and sulk. Back at camp, she got mad at me saying that she wasn't reaching and I made her look like an idiot, which is when I passed around the picture of her reaching for the lion and she shut up. I could go on, but this is already longer than I wanted, so I'll just say that I was glad when Kavina went home. The top comment, she was not so much as trying to pet the lion as trying to feed it. I dated a Kevin who thought Canada was a third world country. From 2015 to 2018, I dated and lived with an abusive Kevin. Here are some short highlights of our time together. He claimed to be a mechanic and loved everything about trucks, but he put water in my gas tank to make it go further. Well, off to a rough start. When I panicked and called my father for help, he accused me of not understanding how cars work. He told me we could live with his aunt, when his aunt really told him that he could watch the house for a week while they were away for hospital treatments. We then had a very awkward 2 days days of me asking why everyone was so frustrated with us. He adopted a dog who was advertised as highly aggressive due to being from a dog fighting ring, and tried to sleep in the same bed as it for the first night. He got bit in his sleep. His fault really, not the dog's. He once showed me a slap together, obviously satire video of Obama that made him say stuff like, "I did 9/11," while his entire background and appearance would change with each word, and claimed that it was proof that he was a criminal. Okay, that's kinda concerning. He thought he could outrun his mother's greyhound. They never saw the dog after that, sadly. He once turned the stove on without clearing it off and went to the bathroom because it doesn't heat up that fast, and it started a fire. Thankfully, I'm the child of 2 firefighters, so I handled it. He'd left cardboard food boxes on the element that he'd turned on. His bank account got hacked 3 times because he kept falling for phishing emails. He was 22. And yeah, he once looked me right in the eye and asked, "Is Canada a third world country?" Yeah, I don't know what to say about this. Kind of more than Kevin behavior, and definitely concerning. Why the Kevins ended up living with their mother until she sold the house to get rid of them. The Kevins were young newlyweds. For their first year of marriage, a relative had gifted them rent-free the use of a modest house. They would only have to pay utilities, and the money saved would help them get a start on a good financial future. The new Mrs. Kevin requested and was granted permission to bring along her small, well-trained dog. The Kevins felt the household was not yet complete. They decided to get a puppy. They answered an ad offering a free puppy. Then they answered another ad, and a couple more after that. Both of the Kevins had had experience with dogs, but it came as an utter shock that housebreaking for puppies was an insurmountable task. They decided to wait until the puppies were older, perhaps like toddlers being toilet trained. You had to wait until they were ready. It didn't seem to dawn on the Kevins that having 5 dogs excreting all over the house, the older dog had figured what the hell and become unhousebroken as well, might be construed as a problem to the relative who owned the house, and it is unclear if their waiting on housebreaking policy would have been successful. The relative dropped in one day, a social call which ended with the Kevins being invited to move out 6 months early. The Kevins figured that by not paying their utility bills, after all they were leaving, they would have just about enough money to cover first and last month's rent on a different place. Finding a new place proved difficult, but eventually they located a landlord who didn't know them. They toured the house, and it was agreed that they would meet up with them the next day to give him the money and sign the lease. It was then that the Kevins got a great idea. Their new home to be, unlike the old one, had the electricity turned on. They could run by the store and pick up some groceries and put them in the refrigerator, so they'd be waiting for their move in the next day. Now, they didn't actually have a key to the new place, but that didn't matter. It was summertime, and they noticed the landlord had left some of the windows open. Are you joking? All they had to do was push up the screen and climb inside. The following day, the Kevins arrived for the lease signing. The landlord did not look happy. He informed them that he was aware that they'd broken into the house and that they were lucky he hadn't called the police. He told him he had no intention of renting to them now, and asked if they understood the seriousness of their offense. The Kevins asked if they could have their groceries back. He told them they could not. Oh my god, they broke into a house they didn't even have. Why would you ever do something like this? And how could you ever think you could do something like this? They're so lucky the landlord was nice about it. Kavina fries up household objects for midnight snacks. Throughout the years, my mother has repeatedly turned on the wrong burner on every electric stove we've ever owned. Usually this results in her wondering why the food isn't cooking, and then realizing a moment later. However, I've lived on my own in the same small apartment for 8 years, and she's gotten into the unfortunate habit of putting things on the stove when she runs out of counter space. Is this the same person? One of my cutting boards has 2 separate imprints of a burner on it. Partly thanks to her, I now have a rule that nothing goes on the stove unless it's for cooking. She doesn't seem to have learned that lesson though. Last night at 2:30 a.m. I woke up to the burning smell of plastic and a smoke alarm. After I opened the window and I turned it off, I went to investigate. Turns out my mum had made a midnight snack, accidentally turned on 2 separate burners, and had the bright idea of putting her laptop on the stove so she could continue watching Netflix on it. She says that she started noticing the burning smell and didn't realize what was happening until her laptop shut down. The terrifying thing was that it didn't power down. She brought me her computer with most of the back completely melted, and the fan was going insane. I couldn't even pull the battery immediately because the plastic around the switches was melted, so I just held the power button. It's a cheap Elite book from around 2014, and normally you can just slide the back off it, but part of it was melted, so I had to rip the other pieces off around it. Surprisingly, the internals seem to be fine, certainly the hard drive at least, so I can get her files back if nothing else. She's probably going to try using it later, and I'm mildly afraid. Wow, these have been terrifying today. Yeah, like the top comment says, maybe it's time to look into child-proofing the stovetop covers or getting an induction stove. Yeah, honestly, honestly though, imagine being in the same house as somebody that accidentally ends up cooking their laptop. Yeah, I feel like that's enough for today, guys. Let's read something not concerning. Stop being afraid of what could go wrong and think of what could go right. Oh yeah, that's so true. Gotta always stay optimistic. Ah, life is good. Bro, this man's got cookies in the sewing kit? No way. You can have cookies in those? Incredible. Dads, when their kids give them a homemade gift on their birthday. Dear diary, my day just went from good to great. Oh, that's so cute. Wow, I never knew I needed this in my life, but I absolutely do. That's so beautiful and a beautiful place to leave today's episode. Thank you again for watching, guys. I hope you had a wonderful time. It's always so fun on this subreddit, and I never know what to expect when we go on here. Like, they're always both surprisingly stupid and hilarious. And yeah, I hope you had a wonderful time, guys. If you did, make sure you like and subscribe, all that fun stuff. And the comment of the day goes to Cara Cunningham 4856. I've been watching your videos for the last couple of weeks, and I'm honestly loving every second of them. Keep up the great work, Vincey. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. I love hearing about you guys finding the channel and enjoying the videos. And that's really good because I have like 2,000 videos. So you're probably not going to run out of something to watch. But yeah, for real though, thank you for the support, guys. Everything is going so well and I'm so grateful. Excited for everything to come. And with that being said, make sure you look after yourself and make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!